I've met so many people over the course of the last 20 years, and I always say a mentor isn't something you're paying for. I was listening to every little detail because I was trying to find a way for them that they're lying to me. Why do you think it's a good deal? Why is this? Why is that? And they start learning a little bit too. And they start seeing like that kind of the buy box piece. And so I think the best way to start for people is to smile and dial. If you want to start in 2 years from now, it's 2 years after that. Don't think you're going to wait 2 years and something's going to happen. It's 2 years from when you start. So when you want to start, it's up to you, man.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Commercial Real Estate Blueprint Podcast. I'm really excited for today's guest. We have Josh Zaglowski. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's the co-founder of ERC Specialists and also a partner in Commercial Academy, which you guys know we love. So we're really excited to have you on, Josh. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Glad we can make it work this time.
Absolutely. I think last time we were going to do it, you had something, nothing major come up. It was like, you were going to some event or something, right?
Yeah.
That was awesome. You were hanging out with some pretty big names, right?
Yeah. The group's called Zenith. It was an invite from a guy named Dean Graciosi and Tony Robbins. They partnered up with it. There's about 20 people in the group. And it ended up being, I was just out of town and didn't see it on my list.
No worries at all. I thought I was kidding. I think that was like a very valid excuse. You're like, yeah, I got invited to this Tony Robbins thing. I'm like, that's awesome.
Kentucky Derby, no less.
It's a big deal. So cool.
It's a big deal.
You have a podcast yourself, right?
Yeah, that's what I got my flat bill on. So it's called the Flat Bill Investors Podcast. We just started it about 6-8 months ago. Got some good traction, and it's been a lot of fun.
What do you guys discuss? Commercial real estate stuff, or what's the topic there?
The topic is just entrepreneurs in general. From people, I would say my audience is 14, 15-year-olds, because I have a lot of my son's friends that will listen to it, all the way up to an entrepreneur that's, 55, 60.
That's cool. We started this one, like I mentioned to you, targeting kind of people who wanted to get into commercial real estate, but we always love talking to entrepreneurs. We've had a couple random people on here who weren't necessarily involved with commercial real estate. Like our last episode, we had Sam Gaudette, and he is the guy who helped Dan Martell go from 50,000 followers to over 1 million. So he's like the guy behind the camera and the editing and all that stuff. So he dropped some really valuable information. So eventually it'd be cool to expand into like the entrepreneurship space and just general business, because we both love business stuff.
Yeah.
Well, even though I'm a serial entrepreneur, my passion's always been real estate. My journey started in residential real estate for 15 years and then got into commercial. So
yeah, that's super cool. Yeah. So getting into that, tell us a little bit of your backstory and how you went from wherever you were to residential, then to commercial.
So I started being an entrepreneur at 21. Had a mortgage company. We ended up being the number 3 mortgage company for countrywide in the Western states. I then wanted to learn real estate. I thought maybe you needed to become a realtor. And a friend of mine, invited me to a class with a mentor of mine, ended up being a mentor of mine, Jeff Rappaport, who's now in the Commercial Academy, and just learned residential from flipping, wholesaling, a little bit of subject to stuff. And then did that for, I would say, 10, 15 years. I don't know the exact time frame, but I then wanted to get into commercial and was kind of looking for someone to help me, because I knew I'm a big believer in mentorship and coaching. I found a guy. It's not who I have now, Scott Scheel, but it was a guy that I won't say his name on here, but he got me in the game. It was almost like a little under $100,000, and it lasted for about 18 months. I got into like C and D class apartments, mobile home parks, and motels. And then when I learned about like triple net and like that you can actually make money on A and B class categories, I was like, wow, my mentor before said that's impossible. So I got this new one, which ended up being the Commercial Academy and Scott Scheel. And we instantly became really good friends. And he was an awesome mentor to me. And so was the group. There was a lot of good mentors in the group too. And then just kind of progressed my way into this is the direction I want to go. Not just because for myself, but I also have kids. I have 4 kids. And it's something that, I've always been a believer in real estate for now since I was 23. I'm 45. So 22 years ago. Real estate, I always say they're not making more dirt. And so it's something that you can continue to have education, along the way, because there's so many different ways to make money in real estate. And so when I learned what categories I wanted to invest in commercial real estate, that was the direction I went.
Interesting. That's really cool. So what prompted you to get a mentor initially? Because some people don't think about that. They just jump right in and they start doing things on their own. But like, what made you realize, let me go, spend a significant amount of money, especially at your age? That's awesome. You were able to do that at your age on a mentor.
It's almost a 2 or 3 part answer. So when I was 23, it was mostly because my in-laws, my father and mother-in-law, they had 5 rentals and they were doing really good at it. But I'd always hear the horror stories of fixing pipes at 2 a.m, and I considered them now like traditional real estate investors. You buy a property, you get renters in there, you fix it up yourself, you do it yourself. And go into like kind of the pre-class before investing into a mentorship. You kind of heard like, wow, there's different ways to do this. And you don't have to go fix pipes at 2 a.m. You can learn how to have people do it with you or for you. And so that was the reason I got into at that point. When I got into commercial real estate, it was mostly because at the tail end of my transitioning into, I was a residential flipper doing about 30, 40 deals a year to now I had an opportunity to be a developer. Well, I went to bought a development. It was right during the mortgage meltdown and I put $400,000 of my own cash into it. Fast forward 16 months later, I fire sold that and I lost $350,000, mostly because I tried to do it on my own. I thought, I'm a real estate investor. I can go do a development now. And I said to myself, I should have got a development partner or some sort of mentor that knows development instead of trying to figure it out on my own. And so I knew going into commercial, that was the direction I want to go. And so I've met so many people over the course of the last 20 years. And I always say a mentor isn't something you're paying for to make money. You're also investing. I always use the word investing, not to lose money. If like Commercial Academy, it's a yearly cost. And that's what people always think is the word cost. I call it a yearly investment, and it's investment to not just make money, but it's also like, hey, I can get in this deal and I can lose $500,000. I literally was just with a friend yesterday, really good friend, at lunch yesterday. He did 3 deals and he's down $275,000, and so he's made money in real estate. He's been doing real estate for a long time, but that is the thing that sometimes you got to invest in, is something to help you not lose money and have someone else look at it with you. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Because like you mentioned earlier, you should have brought on a development partner because that was their expertise. If you're buying something, let's say it's your first deal, you don't know what you're getting into, or in that situation, you wanted to bring in an expert in that situation to help you get through it and see things that you didn't see. Or maybe like there's been so many people come into Commercial Academy and they'll go up on stage and be like, I wasn't sure at first, and then wound up doing this deal and I made close to $1 million in one deal. That's life-changing stuff.
Yeah.
That can happen like that. But you wouldn't have known that if you didn't join the group, get invested, and actually dive into it and take action with people that can show you how to do it, right?
Right. Because I've been doing real estate for quite a while, when I was investigating Commercial Academy, and remember, my mentor before was telling me to make money in A and B class is impossible. And so I was skeptical. And I remember talking to like 5 or 6 diamond members in Commercial Academy. I was listening to every little detail because I was trying to find a way for them that they're lying to me. This is too good to be true. And it just, the smell test passed like with flying colors. And I said, I'm going to go do this. And luckily, such a great group that it's been built over the course of the last 20 years of people that you can tap someone on the shoulder and say, hey, I got a quick question for you. And they don't have that transactional relationship. They don't want something out of it. They just want to make sure they're helping people. And I think that's valuable.
So I think that brings up a good question. What is a good mentor? I think you talked about it a little bit, but you were investigating these guys. So tell us, if you're somebody that is looking for a mentor, what should they be looking for?
It's a good question. I want to talk to someone that I want to know what they've done so far. I want to hear their losses. Like the one thing that I do in business, and I learned from this from a guy named Tim Francis 25 years ago when I was doing the mortgage business. And I was recruiting him to be my branch manager in Dallas. I'm in Utah. And I was giving him all this awesome stuff. Dude, you're going to make so much money. You're going to do this. You're going to build a team. You're going to have an office, all this other stuff. And he just listens the whole time. And then about 10 minutes after, I didn't let him talk. And because I was at what I call throwing up on him on selling it, right? He stops me and he goes, Josh, sounds awesome. Tell me the bad stuff. What is the bad stuff that I need to know about? Because I did not want to learn it 6 months from now or something but I want to know the bad stuff so I know how to overcome it. And so that was a lot of things I was asking people is like, well, tell me the bad stuff. I saw the deal that you just presented. You made $1.8 million or whatever. What percentage of that was you, if you don't mind me asking? Oh, I was 28% of it. Okay. I like that. I don't want someone to, because sometimes, you hear someone like, oh, I got $300 million under management. Okay. How much debt is that? About 70%. Oh, I'm talking to people that have, $200 million under management and their debt is 40 to 50%, and so you start understanding those numbers a little bit. And so I like to number one, ask those questions, what the bad stuff is. I want to know what their history's done, how long you've been doing it, 5 years. What was some things that you did in the very beginning that you wish you would have known about? And a lot of that word mentor kind of is used loosely a little bit. In other words, sometimes people say, well, that's my mentor. I can call him all the time. There's a lot of mentors in Commercial Academy, but they also have their own time and space. They're not doing it one-on-one, if that makes sense. It's kind of a group effort where you can, I always use that thing like I used to do, like, hey, let me take you to lunch. Well, okay, that's an hour of my time. And you're going to buy me a couple of rolls of sushi. Like what do you want to get out of it? Because it's really what you want. It's because you're taking it from me, And so I always like to say, like, how can I add value to what you're doing? And I think those people that receive that type of input is more, they're more open to like kind of being a mentor, that type of basis, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's interesting. Cool. So yeah, we're big proponents of having a mentor. Obviously, we're very fortunate to be in City Plat's office where we're surrounded by, a bunch of killers. So we've learned a lot from them. So if somebody's listening to this and maybe they don't have the money to go into Commercial Academy, or they don't have the fortune of being at somewhere like City Plat, what would you recommend them to do to go out and find somebody who they can learn from to get in the game?
So there's two things to this. We're actually working on something where someone can be, the word bird dog is used kind of in a bad connotation a little bit because it's been used in residential, like, oh, you can be a bird dog and all this stuff. Well, I was a bird dog, even though I was investing money and I had money to invest every year. What I mean by that is my first 3 deals, I made 3 to 5% general partnership on the deal. Now that got me learning how they were sending stuff to their investors or whatever. They raised the money. I found the deal. But then they finance the deal, they raise the money. And I always tell people that's actually the easy part. The hard part's when you close and you actually have investors that you have to report to. And you have to make sure you're adding value to the property because you want these investors to be with you for a long time, right? And so I wanted to see that process. And so with that, I got a finder's fee of $15,000 and a 3% GP ownership. Now 3%, that might have made me $5,000 a year. I can't remember. But then we sold it in 3 years. And then I made an extra check of about, $38,000. That's not bad. That's actually really good for someone that's want to be a bird dog and learning. I tell people that's the best way to start. Even if you're a person like myself that was investing the money each and every year to learn, if you don't have that type of resources, find someone that you can say, hey, what's in your buy box? What are you looking for? I'm going to smile and dial. I'm going to find some deals and then I'll bring them to you. But I don't want someone to, so sometimes I always tell people it's like, okay, you brought me this deal. Why do you think it's a good deal? Instead of just sending it to me and say, hey, the broker says it's great. Every broker says every single deal is great if they're selling it, right? So why do you think it's a good deal? Why is this? Why is that? And they start learning a little bit too, and they start seeing like that kind of the buy box piece. And so I think the best way to start for people is to smile and dial, to be kind of the I have a script that I've provided to people in the past that I used that I actually learned from more of my first mentor because he was a smile and dialer on D-class type of assets and knowing just kind of understanding numbers, going through, LoopNet, because, I would say 19 times out of 20, you're not going to buy a property on LoopNet, but you can at least talk to people and they'll talk back to you and you can learn as you go. And it's a very good environment to at least learn and make those calls and work with someone that maybe even 3 or 4 people. That's what I did. I went to 3 or 4 Diamond members and I said, okay, tell me what your buy box is. I will find you deals. Out of all the stuff I did, like I said, I did 3 deals with Diamond members in the first 18 months. Then I started doing my own deals. And even I was talking about my very first deal that I actually had to raise money and stuff. I didn't have money to invest in it. And so that's a hard thing when you're trying to raise money. Like, because one of the things people will ask is, well, how much money do you have into it? I got nothing, Well, then why do you think it's a good deal? Well, I can show you all the numbers. I can show you the partner that's going to be on the mortgage note. And we raised the money. And I call it a base hit. It was we bought it for $2 million. my percentage was about, I think, 18.5% or something like that. And it was making me about $20,000 a year of residual income, profit. And then 5 years later, we sold it for 3.8 million. And then I got an extra check. I want to say of about, $300,000 or $400,000, but that taught me a lot, because in that first 12 months after finding my first deal on my own and being in higher end GP, higher percentage GP, I then got 2 or 3 more deals after that.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Yeah. We've talked a lot about the first thing you mentioned, which is being a bird dog. And there's so many ways we could talk about it. But one of them is just like, that's exactly what we do basically for City Plat. We go out and try to find good deals for them, bird dog deals. And I did that exact same thing that you mentioned. I went out, found an industrial deal, put it under contract, and got 3.5% of the deal, which we're actually in the process of selling right now. And like you said, it's nothing insane, but I'll be getting like a check for like $15,000. And the fact that I was able to learn, I got a commission on the front end because I'm a broker, and then we're selling it. I'm going to get $15,000. That's not a bad way to learn. And then you go on and do the next one and the next one, like you said. I think that's such a good way for people to learn, and like 3 to 5% can be a lot. And then you went on, like you said, and bought these other deals, which is extremely impressive. You said it was 18%, but it still equated to $300,000 to $400,000. Like, that's what people don't understand in the commercial real estate world. It's like, you held it for 5 years. So, that's just a ton of money over 5 years. You can't do that in residential real estate. If you bought a house for $2 million, it's not going to appreciate to 3.8. Yeah. I assume you did some kind of value add or something like that. Yeah. So yeah, that's awesome and extremely valuable. So I'm curious now, where is most of your time spent? Is it on the Commercial Academy partnership? Is it another business you have? Is it your podcast? Or are you still looking for deals?
Commercial Academy for sure. And actually, we're always doing stuff all the time with it. The month of June has been tough for me just because I always travel with my family in June. So I've been kind of out of the loop the last about 3.5 weeks. But outside of that, that's on my mind all the time. I'm literally talking, like my friend that I was talking about earlier that lost $275,000. What is my conversation with that? It's like, dude, I want you to get into commercial real estate. Like, we've talked about this for a little bit. You got to be dialed in. Let me do some stuff with you. I had this smile and dial thing that I'm going to do with him to kind of teach him a little bit for a couple hours. And he's been a friend for 15 years, so that's what I'm willing to do with him. But I've had other friends too that, one I can think of that flips probably 40, 50 homes here in Utah. And I've been telling him about commercial real estate for 5 years. Well, in the last 6 months, the residential market is not doing good. And he's starting to see a lot of his flips losing money. And he's like, man, I should have been doing it a long time ago. I always tell people, because they say, how long will it take me to make money? I said, whenever you start, it's about 2 years after that. So if you want to start in 2 years from now, it's 2 years after that. So don't think you're going to wait 2 years and all of a sudden something's going to happen. It's 2 years from when you start. So when you want to start, it's up to you, man.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a really great point. And that's the other thing I meant to mention earlier when you were talking about finding deals and stuff. That I think that's the number one most valuable. If you're brand new, you don't know anything, that is the most valuable skill you can develop, because people like Josh and other people who maybe they got some money or they've got some connections or whatever, they might not have the time to go look for deals all day long because they have so many other things going on. And so if you can connect with somebody like Josh or somebody else in your market who's a mentor or can be a mentor, that's how you can get into deals. You find them for people. And the other cool thing too is like you mentioned earlier, a lot of people ask people like, I want to get started in real estate. Well, can I take you to lunch? And like you said, a very busy person, they may say yes to be nice, but like you said, you're taking time away from them. But if you send them an email or whatever and you say, hey, what's your buy box? What are you looking at? Or even just do a little research, go to their website, look at the kind of properties they're buying, then go out, look for a couple, find 2 or 3 deals, send them to an email. Hey, I see you're buying all these properties. I would love to learn from you. What do you think about these deals? I'd love to help you buy them if possible. Now you're learning by doing. If you send them deals and end up helping them find something, they're a lot more likely to walk alongside you and teach you the process. So that's just a great way to learn. But anyways, the point of me saying all that is finding good deals is, I think, probably the best and highest value thing you can possibly do.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, I think so too. I think it's, I talked, so in my first mentorship, I had a friend of mine that, and actually was my partner on my very first deal, because I brought him over on the triple net side. I said, hey, what we taught was over here on the C and D class, where we said there's no way to make money on A and B class. I've been around this group, Commercial Academy. I want you to come aboard with me and be a partner, because back then, Commercial Academy has always been like the book, Who Not How, finding people's different skill set. His skill set is analytics. Excel sheets, like understanding and like sending stuff out to investors, not acquisitions, right? And so I said, hey, I'll do this if you do that. I'll start sending it to you. You underwrite it the best you can. We'll just learn as we go on the underwriting side. And now he's not only one of my best friends, but like one of the best at underwriting a deal. There's even people in the commercial academy that calls him individually. He's like, hey, can you help me with this? And I'll bring you in on the deal because he's built that skill set,
That's awesome.
Wow.
That's awesome. Yeah. What does your portfolio look like nowadays? Do you have a lot of properties? Are they in Utah? Where are they? Or kind of tell us a little bit about that.
So I have 28 properties in my portfolio. 5 of them are in Utah, and then all the rest outside of Utah. Concentrate on retail is my number 1, and then flex industrial number 2, and then medical dental number 3. Nice. I'm starting to look at some multifamily. I stayed at multifamily for a while just based on, Scott, my mentor's recommendation with that, and, being very careful about buying the last couple of years. And so now I'm starting to see deals that are coming down the pike that, equity firms, over leveraged, mortgages are coming due, all that kind of stuff. And so I'm definitely open to, looking at multifamily, but I've seen some blood on the street with it already.
It's interesting because I know, like you mentioned, that these equities, they have a lot of problems with occupancy, I believe, and they want to make sure that they're keeping stuff in their portfolio that's performing really well, including with occupancy, but also the mortgage stuff. That's interesting. It's kind of honestly the first, we ask all this all the time. Like, have you been seeing, like we ask like buyers, sellers, have you been seeing this issue? We kind of saw a little bit a couple of years ago, but this is the first time that we've really heard that there's blood in the water on that. So I think there's a lot of opportunity, like you mentioned. Something I wanted to ask about was, because you brought up the wholesalers, I have several friends that are wholesalers on the residential side, and I keep telling them about the commercial side. Do you think it's that transition gap of like, what's preventing them, you think, from coming over to the commercial side?
I had about 3-4 years ago, I had about 2 to 3 friends, real good friends, that were wholesalers or still are in residential and flipping. And I told them, I said, dude, let's just do a deal together. You'll get to see it, all that kind of stuff. And so I actually found the deal, got the financing and was saying, hey, why don't you at least put in like a couple $100,000 so you can see like as an LP, how that kind of looks. And you'll see where we can make money on this, And they had the hardest time because what they're used to is, number one, quick money. Wholesaler in residential is like you can literally get a deal and have a check by Friday. Commercial, usually highly unlikely that's going to happen. It's going to be a couple months, maybe even up to 6 months because there's a lot of due diligence that's involved, right? But both of them wanted more money as the LP percentage because what they're used to is getting 50% or 100% of the deal. And I had to kind of tell them about the who, not how mentality before Who, Not How book came out. And they didn't see it. Both of them now do apartments. They're at least doing apartments. And one of them is in the commercial academy, just became enrolled. So I won't say his name. But he said, man, I should have listened to you 5 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever. I'm not trying to say like, yeah, you should have. But, people have to go through their own pain sometimes in order to like have that like, okay, now I get it. They have to have that aha moment. My aha moment was I was trying to find, skepticism. I was skeptical. I was trying to find someone that was going to, red flags. And that was my aha moment because I didn't find one, and I had honesty and integrity, people that were talking to me with honesty and integrity. And so I think people have to find that. So it's like one thing is, we can only bring, what's the saying? You can only bring the horse to the trough, but it matters if they're going to drink the water. Yeah. It's the same thing, at least we're showing them the opportunity, and it might never happen and that's okay. But I always feel better at least talking to them about it and telling them, what it's about, not what they're missing out on, but what this is about and why it could literally change their life. I'm sure you said on the podcast, but the one thing I always liked about Scott saying is one deal, one time can change your life forever. I've seen that with my own eyes with people in the group, like Sean Katona with his first 2 deals, from, being in the group for 3 years, investing that amount of money each and every year to the 4th year and is finally, getting 2 deals and putting almost $3 million in his pocket. That changes your life.
Yeah, that's incredible. I came to the first event in Orlando last year, so it's almost been like a year and a half or something like that, which is where I think like a lot of stuff was shifting that time. But you got up on stage and we're talking about your company ERC, and then I watched several people present and stuff, and that really opened my eyes to like, oh wow, like I could, because I had been in brokerage for like 5 years at that point, and owned some small residential stuff. But I thought, I couldn't get into commercial for whatever reason. I just had that mindset. And then I saw all these people like, yeah, I bought this, I sold that. And I was like, wow, these people are, these are awesome people, but there's nothing insanely special about them. It's just regular person doing deals. The only difference is they actually took action, went out and did it. So that really opened my eyes. Then we went out, and last year we bought several buildings. One of the buildings I bought for $800,000 seller financing. And, we got an offer on it. I didn't sell it, but we got an offer on it for 1.25. So that's a $450,000 gain. That's life. If I sell it, that would be life changing for me for sure. So it's definitely true. It's definitely true, that saying. And I love it too. Something we talk about is like in commercial real estate, like you said, it could take 3, 4, 5 months to close a deal. But my mindset is we're 3, 4, 5 months away from changing our life.
Yeah. I see my story all the time about my first deal that I did on my own, because 10 years prior to it, when I was 5 years into being in residential real estate, there was a commercial brokerage in our office, but I thought you had to have a lot of money to be in commercial real estate. But what I realized is you need to have the education. And I've had a lot of people all the time, because I've taught for like the Property Brothers and HGTV shows for residential stuff. And I've had people come in the room and they're like, man, I coulda, woulda, shoulda. I should have been doing this 10 years ago. But if I had the money and you guys have hard money available, now I can actually do this. I'm like, no, that just tells me you're not educated, because there's a lot of money around you and then you could present it, but it's just, you need the education. And I was preaching that, but I didn't realize that that's still the same in commercial real estate. You need the education, not a lot of money, And so like when my first deal, when I didn't have any money to invest in the deal, it was my education that got me over the hump.
Yeah.
100%.
I think that goes back to the who not help piece of everybody wants to figure out, well, just how did you do it? And a lot of the situations, it's that bird dog where you went out and found out that first deal, and then that person showed you how. That person was the who that showed you the education, that gave you the how, and it was so much easier that way. Something I'm curious about, Graham mentioned ERC Specialists, how you're able to balance, Commercial Academy, your own business, your own portfolio. Like, how are you able to do that?
And 4 kids too. I have 3 kids, so I can relate to the insanity of that.
Awesome wife, 4 kids. Honestly, when it kind of was, everything happens for a reason. It was at the time where Scott was telling everyone, the Commercial Academy, it's not a great time to buy right now. So in 2020 and 2021, I started ERC Specialists in May of 21. So in 2020 and 2021, I was actually trying to find deals and nothing was adding up. And everything that he said came true. And so it was kind of a perfect timing for me, because then I dove into ERC Specialists. I didn't know how big it'd be. I tell people all the time that, when you make a new business, when you start a new business, you do a pro forma. And we did a pro forma that, hey, dude, if we can, make about 80 to 100 grand a month in this, we're going to kill it. And we ended up doing, $1.8 billion in sales from something that we thought, if we could make $1.2 million a year in sales, we'll kill it. And we did, $1.8 billion. So that said, during 21, 22, it was a lot of selling. I was selling my assets. I wasn't buying. It wasn't until 24 that I actually bought real estate. And started buying stuff in real estate and stuff. So, and obviously with Scott. So it just worked out for perfect timing, because he wasn't buying either. I don't know if, I never asked him if he was selling, but I know for sure he wasn't buying, because he would have been telling people. But it just ended up being good timing. And it was a good government program. I've met a lot of people. It was invited to the inauguration with the IRS commissioner and different things like that. Or my partner was. I was invited by someone else, but I've met a lot of government officials and stuff. And now my network's a lot larger, and it's just kind of gone, because then when ERC was started sunsetting, Commercial Academy started coming back in, where there's deals to be made and an opportunity to, have a crusade of showing more and more people about commercial real estate. So
that's so cool.
Worked out for me.
Yeah, that's so cool. And you helped me, because I went to that first Commercial Academy event and you presented on that. And I remember being super excited about Commercial Academy, like super excited, like this is so cool, fired up, all this stuff. But then at the end, I was like, man, I'm kind of bummed, because I can't afford this. Like, no way I can afford this right now. And then you told me about that thing. And I think I messaged you like a couple weeks ago, maybe about a month ago at this point. I applied for the ERC credit and all that stuff back when you said it a year and a half ago. And a check came in the mail like a month ago. And it was awesome. I was like, wow, I went to this event and, because of it, got this decent sized check. So it was really cool. But I'm curious, what, I always assumed that you had kind of been in Commercial Academy since day one, since you're now a partner. So tell us kind of how you got into the group and then now you're a partner in it. That's really cool. So tell us how that came about and kind of that story.
Yeah, I don't know how much time we have, but I'll try to keep it brief. But I came in, so I got a call from kind of a third party service that was just saying, hey, can you consult for this new group called Commercial Academy? They're starting a new platinum division. They've just done diamonds in the past. And this guy, Scott Scheel, and all that other stuff, you do, commercial real estate. So that's why, you're kind of qualified to be a consultant. So I came into Austin, Texas. I want to say it was in 2017. And I came there. I was kind of behind the scenes. I barely talked to Scott. I was mostly talking to a guy named Jake. And then at the very end of the event, I was really surprised on the caliber of people that was there. There was a couple diamonds, but it was mostly these newer platinums, right? That were potential platinums. And then after that, Jake was like, dude, we really like you. Like, we want to continue to work with you. We're going to do this like a couple times a year. Okay. So then I said, well, I want to kind of learn a little bit what you guys do. Do you guys have some videos I can watch and kind of understand? And that was kind of delayed a little bit for me. And so I got skeptical. That's when I got skeptical. I was like, well, maybe this is a little too good to be true. Because I've seen seminar companies that guys will get up there and they'll say, I'm closing this many deals. And then they're asking me like, how do you do this deal? And I'm like, that's a basic deal. How many deals are you actually doing? And they're like, like 1 or 2 a year. I'm like, you just told people you do 40. I don't like that. I don't like to be part of that, Anyways, so Jake's like, hey, there's an event that they're doing called the Retreat down in Cabo, and Scott wants you to come down. And I'm like, well, I didn't get the videos, and I'm just gonna pass. I'll just see you guys next year. And he's like, okay. He calls me back the next day. He's like, dude, Scott's never offered that to someone. I would come down. I would find a way to get your wife down there, and you get to see how this works. Okay. I went to the retreat in Cabo, and I was open, but I was also skeptical. And so then I went to this presentation. I'm seeing all these presentations, these awesome dudes, Danny, Kevin, there's the brothers, Anthony and Frank. I'm seeing these awesome presentations. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So I waited till I was in the pool area, dinner. That's when I'm kind of like targeting people. Like, I'm going to go talk to that guy, and I started talking to people. Anyways, I then left there and I told my wife, I'm like, I'm all in. Like, I'm going to make sure I can help them as much as possible. So, and I did. And over the course of 5-6 years, I got a better personal relationship with Scott. And then in the end of 23, he told me, he's like, hey, I want to come see Utah. I want to come see ERC, your office. I want to come talk to you. So we talked, and I took him around town. I showed him, I introduced him to like many like major people here in Utah. And then on the drive back from the airport, he then said, hey, I want to expand Commercial Academy. And I've never offered this to anyone yet, but I can see that, you've always been a proponent. You're always not just helping me in the room, you're helping me outside of Commercial Academy. And I want your business skills. I'll take care of the commercial side. You take care of a lot of the business side things. And I think we could be a great match. And we talked about it for a good 30, 60 days. And then come January 1st, 2024, we became partners. And I haven't looked back since. It's been a newer venture for me, only because I've been normally used to startups where this is an established, successful business with my partner as my mentor, And so outside of that was kind of rocky. Not rocky. That's a bad word. It was hard to get used to for the first probably couple months. Mm-hmm. And then I've been like really straight and narrow with it. Anytime I talk to someone, or I'm always trying to find different people to talk to about ways that could help the Commercial Academy, as far as like big private equity firms that has a lot of money that they want to put in, people in Dubai that I've been talking with and stuff that could help fund deals, because we as Commercial Academy can find really good deals. But you always want to make sure you have good financing and good other, financing partners on the back end. So like, he's like a brother to me now, and it's been an awesome relationship. I adore his family. We have a great relationship with his family. We've done some trips together, and we know we're going to do more. I'm going in Cleveland a week early to go hang out with them, with my family. So yeah, so it's just been a good ride.
That's so cool. I think what's awesome and all that is it wasn't like you went out and just tried to, become a partner with somebody and pitched him or something like that. It's like you were already doing all this work. You had been successful. You had proven yourself. You had been in the game for so long that opportunity came about because of your reputation and because of everything you had done. So it's like, I feel like the lesson in it is that you should just focus on becoming valuable. Like you became extremely valuable with all your experience in commercial real estate, with all your experience in entrepreneurship and starting a company. And you had done all these skills and learned all these things. And because of that, someone noticed and then that opportunity came to you. Otherwise, that opportunity wouldn't have come to you if you were just sitting around waiting for it to happen.
Yeah.
You were already doing things and taking action and in massive ways. And then, somebody else who'd been taking massive action noticed, and then you guys teamed up. And I think that's so cool. The timing's funny too, because like I said, that first event I ever went to, I think it was February 2024. So it's like right when they were announcing all that stuff. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And I really look forward for the next 5, 10, 15 years in it. I mean, it's just going to continue to expand. He has a great vision. In my opinion, with the ambassador program on how it's just going to continue to expand for many different markets and opportunities. And this is where opportunities for bird dogs come into place too, that we're trying to implement,
Yeah. So if people don't know a couple things, I'm going to plug it here real quick. And before I do, I've said this to people, I'll like go out and meet with people and stuff and just about commercial real estate. And I'll talk to them about Commercial Academy. And I'll be like, you should come to the event. You should join. And I'm like, we're fortunate that the podcast is sponsored by you guys, but I was saying that for like the whole year and a half, well before any of that. I was like, you guys should do this. Like we've been firm believers in it, like from the beginning. So when I go pitch it to somebody, I feel like they're thinking I'm just like, there's some kind of side motive, but there's really not. So for people who don't know much about the ambassador program, tell them about that. And then also, secondly, talk to us about the event that's coming up in Cleveland, because I'm going to be there. Jesse's going to be there, and what somebody can expect and why they should come.
Yeah. So let me start by, I always tell people is like, hey, for $1,000, it's probably give or take $100 from that. For $1,000, you're going to get $10,000 worth of value. And I tell them like, hey, in wherever market, and there is a mentorship, you're going to have members, you're going to have 75% members there, 25% non-members there. You'd be a non-member by coming and, investing $1,000 in 3 days of your time. Now the mentorship is, $30,000 a year, but that's going to be totally up to you. Don't make that decision till the very end, and that, again, if it's something you do right then, or if you do a couple months from now or 2 years from now, like I tell you, whenever you start, it's 2 years from that. So that's going to be totally up to you. But for $1,000, you'll see what I'm talking about, because it's hard to explain, and so when they're there, then you can explain it to them. And then you're introducing them to people in their market or wherever they're at. But then they get to understand what the ambassador program is, where they can be in a market and they can bird dog for people that are looking for a certain demographic, and they're seeing this person on stage in presentations or whatever, and they're feeling a lot more comfortable about working with that person, that ambassador. And right now there's 12 ambassadors. There's going to continue to expand it from there in different levels, but that way someone can kind of, I hate to use this term because I'm in Utah, and Utah is like the multi-level capital of the world. But it is ground floor. It's funny because even though Commercial Academy has been around for 20 plus years, we're just starting. Like we literally are just starting. And there's going to be so much more opportunity behind it with different things that me and Scott are working on right now, that in relationships with, just bigger names and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I think once I have the best luck of getting people just, letting them know like, hey, there is a mentorship. Don't be surprised, but it's this much money and this much investment. But for $1,000, it's worth your time. Now, I've even had friends. In Vegas, I had a friend that this guy makes 7 figures plus a year in wholesaling in residential. And I do a lot of work with him on, he's part owner of a title company. So I do some stuff with him on my hard money and stuff like that. I was surprised that he didn't move on, and it might be 6 months from now, maybe 12 months from now. I've never asked him the reason, but I'm just glad that he at least took the time to be there for 3 days and see what it is and make that determination. Because that's what I asked. at least make the 3-day investment in time.
Yeah, for sure. I had a buddy who I invited to the Raleigh event who's a successful business broker guy. And I told him, come to this event. And he's like, I don't know, man. I've been to a lot of these types of events. And that seems to be the reaction. I've been to a lot of these types of things from people. But it's really different. Like you said, it's hard to explain. It's hard to put in words. It's nothing. I haven't seen anything like it before. So it's really cool. No. So Cleveland's coming up. Tell us a little bit about that event and what people can expect. And we'll obviously put a link to where you can sign up in the description too.
Yeah. What's cool about Cleveland is that's his home base. That's headquarters for Commercial Academy. And so there's always lots of opportunities there. That in Vegas is probably the most amount of members that show up. So if you're coming for the first time, it's one of the top 2 events. So in other words, if you miss this one, I think the next one would be like Orlando's not a bad event, but you don't want to wait. I mean, the longer you wait, the longer you're just putting out that 2-year mark. Yeah. But there's going to be some really good stuff. Last event we talked about single net leases. That was a great thing to learn about, especially in Vegas. A lot of people stayed over to the ICSC to start talking to other brokers about that. But like I said, I mean, I know a lot of people have been to a lot of events. I get that because so have I. I've been to lots of events, thousands of events, and I've taught. I've also been a student, but you're going to get easily $10,000 worth of value. I'd be surprised if someone said, I want my money back. I didn't learn anything. We've never had that. So
that's awesome.
I invited a guy to come to the Raleigh event that he's been in business his whole life, and he don't warehouses, still owns warehouses, and he didn't know anything about the triple net world. He didn't know anything about all this syndication stuff, and he was blown away, and he's owned commercial real estate for years, had no idea this network, all this stuff. He was meeting other people. He was like a kid in the candy store meeting all these people, and he wound up joining in Raleigh, and I honestly did not expect him to. He had told me, I've been listening to the podcast, and I'm curious about it. So we'll just see what this whole commercial real estate thing's about, and came and wound up joining and was like, awesome. Like that's exciting. Like I just got excited for him, I mean, it's so cool. And he's getting started, and he's on his 90-day plan and all that stuff. But for those that don't know if they're really going to get anything out of it, I promise you will.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Agreed.
Well, lastly, kind of tell us what's next for you. I know you're focusing mostly on Commercial Academy, but are you still looking for more deals, or, you got any travel coming up? Tell us what's next.
I do have travel a little bit, middle of June, just for a week. I'm going to that Zenith group with Tony Robbins and Nick Graciosi up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And then in Cleveland with the Scheels about a week before the event. We're going out there, and then my family will fly home and I'll stay. So outside that, as far as deals, that's like I literally reserve a lot of that with Scott. We were just talking a little bit about it right before I left to my European trip. But that's usually what I concentrate on. Being that, ERC, I had 50,000 affiliates. I get opportunities all the time. I've taken more of a consultant role on a couple of them where it's not day to day, but it's something that like, hey, I can help you with this or that. And they're giving me like a small percentage to do that. Because I do have a pretty good expertise in that, because I've seen on how to scale a business from obviously 0 to 1.8 billion. And I wasn't the only person that did it by any means. I had awesome partners and staff, because we went from, there was a couple of us as far as partners to 280 employees in 18 months. So I've seen all the pains that happen with that. And so I've taken more of a consultant role, which is maybe a couple hours a month. But my main focus right now is commercial real estate, because that is a passion of mine. And the biggest thing in my life right now is my son just graduated high school, and my boys talk about real estate all the time, and they've even talked to Scott about it when we did a trip together in Houston with our families. And, they're just in awe that, not only do I have this opportunity to be a partner, but they have an opportunity to do commercial real estate at a young age, and continue to build upon what me and my wife are going to build while we're living, so that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah.
That's so
incredible.
Cool. Yeah. If you could take away one lesson for somebody who wanted to get started from that massive growth you had in your business that you built, what would it be? So
one of the skills I've developed with the growth of that business and like being in commercial real estate, because the one thing I really give Scott a lot of accolades on, I've told him this all the time, is I didn't start ERC Specialists without having the mentality of that who, not how mentality. And that was really taught in Commercial Academy. I even had to teach that to a couple of my partners in ERC that was like, wait, we don't need to bring more and more partners. That just dilutes our percentage of ownership. I'm like, I'm telling you, man, like this is something that we need to do. Let's talk about it. But I'm really positive this is the direction we should go. I would tell someone is don't try to do it on your own. I've been in plenty of networking events, commercial, residential, mostly even commercial. And I'm talking to someone that's just getting into commercial, and I'm like, so who's your partner or partners? They're like, oh, I'm doing it all myself. I'm like, everything? I'm like, that's not good, man. They're like, why isn't it good? I could do this and that. I'm like, I'm telling you, you'll have investors and they'll be like, you're trying to do this all yourself. You better not be getting another deal. Take care of mine, because everyone wants their money to be handled and taken care of, and with tender loving care, with white kit gloves. And so my biggest recommendation is don't do it on your own, whether you have one partner. And the thing is, you don't need a partner to you do an operating agreement together. Just like, hey, do you want to partner on this deal together? Maybe just be yourself and know your skills, I call it your superpower, and then find someone else to do a partnership on a certain deal, or deals. That way you can do multiple deals. I think it was J. Paul Getty that said, I'd rather make 1% on 100 people than 100% of myself. So I've always had that saying in my mind is don't try to do it on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's great advice. I've got a manufacturing glove company that I've tried to take that principle, but I try to leave it outside of the equity piece. So I'll go to manufacturers that have a lot of experience with this and get their opinion, and then they help me make decisions in the business as far as product development, those things. And it's helped me tremendously. I haven't taken on any investors and stuff, but I am 100% myself. Not that I just try to be super, super picky with that. I actually started it with a partner, but it wasn't a great fit. So I took it myself. But for someone that's got a startup, what's the best way to scale? And then I guess my question is how do I give up equity to help me get to the next level? What do I bring on? Do I bring on an integrator? Do I bring on a sales guy? How do I scale that company?
So a couple answers to that. One is there's a book called Slicing Pie. It teaches you when you're doing a startup or an existing business to kind of understand how to slice that pie. And at what point do you actually bring on partners? Make sure a couple things are met. Maybe it's a vested interest over time, on what they do or produce. There's also entrepreneurs. Have you heard that term before?
I have heard it, but I'm not 100% familiar with it.
So Patrick Bet-David wrote a book called something, 4 Moves, I think.
Your
and
next
he talks
5
about
moves or something like that.
entrepreneurs. So let's say I have a business and it's been existing for a while. And rather than bring on an equity partner, maybe I want to bring on someone that has just a division. Good example is if you ever watched the movie called Flaming Hot. It's the guy. It's on Hulu. Definitely got to watch it if you haven't watched it. That's probably my one thing I'll tell your audience that you need to listen to me on is watch Flaming Hot. You'll love it, and you'll get to see something that. So the guy that started the Flaming Cheeto, he was a janitor at Frito-Lay, and they gave him an entrepreneur ownership. Hey, if something happens with the Flaming Cheetos, you get a percentage of that. You don't get a percentage of Frito-Lay, just this division, right? And so sometimes you can go to people on certain things and hey, if this happens, you get a percentage of the growth on this division, if that makes sense, on whatever you're doing.
Yeah. No, I never heard it explained that way. That's actually a really good, because I could just give them a division and say, hey, take this one specific glove and go to all these different people. Because that's what I've been kind of building, that customer discovery of, at the end of the day, every business is solving a problem. And, my problem is broken fingers on the job. So I just designed a glove, kind of came up with an idea, bounced it off a bunch of customers. They liked it. And so I went to production, and then that's just kind of been my base. Every new glove is something that a customer came to me and told me, hey, we kind of need this in the market. You're going to take over the market if you do this. And I was like, okay, I'm listening to that. And I just run with it. So if anybody out there starting a business, they need to work with their customers first to develop whatever it is that they're doing. But
awesome. Well, we seriously appreciate your time. It's been awesome, a ton of value. And if people want to connect with you and hear more from you, what's the best place for them to do it?
I've been really pushing. I got a social media team that we go through stuff every week. My handle's at the Josh Z. Because Jay-Z was taken. And, but yeah, it's the Josh Z. I'm trying to add value to people from the entrepreneur side to even real estate side. That's definitely the best way to get a hold of me.
Okay. Awesome. Well, check them out, guys, and we appreciate you listening. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, if you haven't yet, please give us a review. We only have a couple, but we have a lot of people listening, so we'd appreciate that. Go check Josh out, show him some love, and we appreciate it, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely.